Hello. Is there an echo? No echo. All right. Nice. Welcome. Welcome to the very technically proficient, the inverted form live stream. What do I have planned for today? Not much. Oh my god, I gotta fucking mute the goddamn video. I'm watching myself live stream to myself. What a world we live in. I think I've already said the exact same thing in my last live stream, but don't have a lot planned for today, despite the hilarious thumbnail that I whipped together and the title that I whipped together in about 5 seconds. I guess I'll just do my standard state of the vlog address. I'm actually just going to spend a moment trying to set up a new kind of scene thing where we can maybe look at the internet together. Please bear with me. Yeah, I really should have done that in advance, but please bear with me. Your screen may revert to nothing. Do not adjust your set. Do not adjust your set. Stay tuned. All right. Not quite sure why I'm not showing up here. Video capture device. Properties. Integrated camera. Okay. I don't. This is not gonna happen. I'm just going to read, and you're going to listen. Sorry, I'm just listening to myself. And boost the gain a little bit, see if I can at least. Oops. Man, I'm not good at this. Filters. Gain. Plus 15 dB. Okay, I'm not going higher than that. Maybe I'll go a little bit higher. Plus 16 dB. Can you hear me? If I speak at this volume, I'm now in the yellow range. Well, too bad. Alright, so let's get down to business. The channel. The channel. Who cares? People don't fucking want to hear me talk about my own vainglorious efforts to become an internet superstar, but yeah, nobody's here anyway, and I have nothing else to talk about, so increased. We're currently sitting at 181 subscribers. We did quite a lot of views this week. My video from Tuesday, how many layers of alienation are there, broke through the 500 views ceiling, sitting at 21 likes. That's quite a lot of positive engagement. 6 comments, which is quite nice. I mean, half of those are from me. But my first video to break 500 views, to hit 500 views. My second most popular video is from a long time ago, Media Strategies, of the anti-woke left. Still gets like a fair amount of action just because it's so loaded with like clickbaity keywords, but also has quite a lot of thumbs down. Yeah, it's a pretty shitty video. I've spoken about it before. I really like changed my mind about what I was talking about halfway through the video. And the thumbnail, it's a good concept for a thumbnail, but I did a terrible job with it. This is before I knew a single thing about video editing. Anyway, this Layers of Alienation video did quite well in terms of views as well as positive engagement, 21 likes. And then the video from the next day as well did quite well. Computers are just another form of alienation. 173 views, 10 likes, 7 comments. Pretty good. Congratulations, me. Next video as well did pretty alright. I mean, 288. I think it was like my fastest growing video just because I posted it on a lot of subreddits that I guess get a lot of action, just like some general kind of Linux subreddits, but it didn't really, like, the views stopped quite quickly. Like there's that initial very sudden spike in views when I first published it, but since then, like, it has not grown proportionate. It has not grown apace, and it also didn't give me very many new subscribers. If I look at it, it's giving me 1 new subscriber, which it makes sense to me. I was really kind of advertising it to people who I did not expect to actually go for my sort of content is a bit misguided. Whatever, I'm just spamming shit here. I'm doing volume. If you haven't picked up on this yet, I'm doing volume over quality, which is perhaps not the best way to do it, but just trying to build an initial base of people who, I don't know, are in some way interested. The other video that I put out, I was trying to like do one of those videos that for like returning subscribers, so that subscribers would, this is like my little announcement that I'm doing weekly live streams, and I'm moving the live streams forward a bit to right now. I didn't advertise this at all, and I also had it unlisted. Like I published it basically at the same time as my video on software from Thursday. So I published at the same time. I kept it unlisted, and I didn't advertise it at all. So really the only people who would be seeing it are people who, I guess, like, go to my channel page, which is not many. I don't expect even a lot of my subscribers are going to the channel page. They're probably being advertised my content on their homepage or on the up next, or they're looking through their own like subscriber page, which is interesting. Like I don't do any of that. I really, if I'm watching YouTube content that is being fed to me by the YouTube algorithm, then it's from the homepage or the up next. Like I never use my subscriber kind of page, you know what I mean? Like the page that has all the updates from the people that you subscribe to. Anyway, I'm a boomer though. I am now officially a boomer, I guess. Turned 30 this week on Tuesday. Which I didn't post a video on Friday because on Tuesday for my birthday I did a bunch of drugs which really lowered my immune system, and someone in my household had a cold. They got tested for COVID, returned negative, so it's definitely just a cold, but the drugs really lowered my immune system and I caught the same cold, which does not bode well for our habits, our like anti-COVID habits, obviously. at this point in the pandemic, we should all, I guess, be washing our hands to a greater extent than we are. And, viruses should not be transmitting so easily from one member of a household to another. Like, if that was actually COVID, we would not stand a chance, unfortunately. Anyway, so I didn't put a video out on Friday. Boo-hoo. I know. It's very sad. Just because I wasn't feeling very good. I recorded my 2 videos here. You may have picked up on this from me wearing the exact same clothing and being in the exact same position and talking about pretty much the same thing. But my first 2 videos here from Tuesday and Wednesday were recorded back to back, and then I was able to put out this one for Thursday. I recorded it the day of, just feeling like shit, which kind of explains why it's so bad. I got so many comments on Reddit from all of this, from all of these like Linux nerds who took great exception to my implications that visuality is a form of alienation from the object in question. I mean, you can find this kind of shit in like the most basic epistemological textbooks. Like, it's pretty much in Kant. It's probably in Hegel. It's in all kind of like representationalist epistemology that, like perception itself is a form of alienation, because you're really just dealing with the percepts. You're dealing with impressions. You're not, unless you're like a realist like Aristotle or someone else, every like cognition is basically alienated from the object itself, the Dang an sich, the thing in itself, because it's all just impressions in the mind, in the intuition, as Kant would say, and you're not actually dealing with the objects. Maybe I'll do a video on that. That's pretty freaking sweet connection that I kind of just made. But basically, people did not. I can't really blame people for not understanding what I was saying, because as ever, I'm pretty bad at expressing myself. I think I've gotten better over time, but those videos, especially the Thursday video, was really off the cuff and pretty incoherent. Yeah, so that's all right. It's got this one what is it called? I don't know. Software has been alienating forever or something. It has like a higher rate of engagement, of watch time, a higher average view duration, just because there's like a clip at the beginning, which is a bit of a cheat, but whatever. It's pretty good thumbnail too, I think. You will own nothing and you will like it. My thumbnail game, it's not bad. I feel like my my video from Tuesday, how many layers of alienation are there? I was really not expecting that to do as well as it did. It's 505 views right now, 21 likes, and I feel like so much of it is because of the thumbnail. Pretty hilarious thumbnail. Just depressed blue collar Wojak. Yeah, I stopped using Pepe. I used him briefly in some thumbnails a few times, but then thought about it, and despite what that movie Feels Good Man would have you believe, that Pepe has been reclaimed by his owner, and he is no longer strictly associated with the alt-right. He still is, especially in like YouTube land, in like terms of clickbaity kind of shit. Anyway, well, that's pretty much it. I mean, I had like decent view week despite not putting out a video on Friday. Pretty high amount of views. The podcast did not do very well. The title is a bit uninteresting. It's kind of a box that we locked ourselves in with our formatting that eventually, when I get around to reconfiguring everything and rebuilding the website, I hope to renumber the episodes and possibly move beyond just titling the episodes after the essay, because the essays are not nearly clickbaity enough. They're not nearly informative enough. Spontaneity, mediation, rupture, that doesn't really tell your average YouTube viewer anything about what's going into it. But at the same time, with the podcast, we're playing the long game and we're not doing clickbait, and we're relying on people, on the already established brand credibility of the EndNotes Journal to get people in, to get people watching and listening, whatever. Anyway, tomorrow I have a interview scheduled with Jasper Burns. Somebody left. Wow, great content, my guy. Thanks, The Builder. Thanks for your support. So I have an interview coming up. That's going to be some pretty great content with Mr. Jasper Burns. I spoke about this last week. He's a whatchamacallit, like a philosopher, academic guy. Kind of nervous about it. I have a bunch of questions already lined up. One of them taken from a comment that somebody actually left on the channel. A very, very well thought out, the logistics essay. Yeah, we've gotten a few of those. It's very refreshing, very nice. When people actually engage with you in the non-Reddit brain fashion, and like actually, like, you can offer, I've spoken about Reddit brain before, but you can offer critiques of things. You can be critical and come at things from a like problematizing perspective without being a Reddit brain, without being like an absolutely scum-sucking, immature like piece of shit, and just like assuming that you know better than the person that you're engaging with, and therefore you're going to mansplain to them. Like, so many of the comments that I received this week in particular on Reddit, in regards to like, because I was posting a lot of like tech shit and like posting my videos in a lot of like Linux kind of subreddits, and there's so many mansplanations. It was unbelievable, like how free people are to just assume that you're a fucking idiot and like mansplain like the most just completely unrelated bullshit that is only like tangentially relevant to what you're talking about, and then just assume the most utmost like oh, it's Elizabeth. I don't know. Elizabeth IDK. Yeah, that your question about the thing that you brought up about how logistics is like potentially I'm just trying to find your comment, but how the idea of logistics like might inhibit growth for like people who are not already on the same, or like nations that are not already on the same footing as more developed nations, is an interesting question that I want to bring to Mr. Burns. And it also, I think there's a distinction to be made between logistics and planning. That's my intuition. I believe he's probably going to respond to that. He's written about planning. He wrote an article this year. I only read the abstract, but the title is something like Planning and Anarchy or something. It's written in the South Atlantic Quarterly. So, and planning is like a concept that you hear so much in the context of like socialist nations, like centralized planning and whatnot. So I think that logistics is like a technical term, at least it was in the essay. It's not quite equivalent with planning per se, and I'm not sure if this is really representative of what you're saying in your comment. I'm trying to find it again. Sorry I didn't respond. Well, I won't read it all out, but I'll revisit it. I still have to. I've been like really procrastinating, really bringing me back to when I was a student. Any form of deadline just has me hard procrastinating, and yeah, my plan is to read another one of his essays that are relevant to the topic today, and then like finalize my list of questions and send it to him. We might have to push it back, the interview, like a day. It would only be published next week in any case, but because I told him that I would try to get him the list of questions like in advance of the interview. So because I've put it off for so long, we might reschedule it to like Tuesday or Wednesday. But yeah, I'm going to look at your comment again and clean up my questions here. But yeah, whatever. Okay, am I Russian? No, I am not. I am Canadian. I guess I technically am Bulgarian by like tendential like ties to my father's father, Todorov. My surname is a Bulgarian surname. I went to Bulgaria once. The worst country in the European Union, the worst country in Europe, took over the crown from Romania. I spent like about a month and a half there just hitchhiking around, and spent like a lot of time living on a beach, the Black Sea. But it's just like full of like rubble fields, and the trains are like from the 70s or something, and yeah, it's a real shithole. But they have some pretty dope like communist architecture. I went to Buzluja. I almost died trying to get there. It's like an abandoned Soviet monument on the top of a mountaintop directly in the middle of the country. It was like 40 degrees out when I was trying to get there. I was like trying to hitchhike up this mountaintop. Took forever to get a ride. There was no shade. It was really excruciating. And then, but getting inside was pretty epic. I have photos somewhere. I think I posted them on Twitter, but what else am I going to talk about here? Great content. Great content. I mean, welcome to the channel. Well, the other essay that I was going to read is called The Belly of the Revolution by Jasper Burns. It's about agriculture, energy, and the future of communism. As he kind of spoke to me about in our like initial meeting, he has written like a bunch of stuff. He's like kind of continued this theme of logistics and planning in the context of, you know, communism. He's like the logistics essay that we read and discussed on the podcast is from like 10 years ago nearly, but he's continued writing about that on that theme in the intervening years. Again, he just put out an essay this very year on the same topic of planning and anarchy. But The Belly of the Revolution is specifically about agriculture and food. It's interesting. I was just reading this morning this book. I'm just going to take it out. Just gonna show off some book porn. It's supporting my laptop right now. But really need a fucking desk. But I was just reading this book called Mao's China and After, on the chapter about land reform, and specifically the process of collectivization during the mid-50s, during like the first of China's 5 years plan, 5 year plans. Anyway, the author is like quite sympathetic. It's a really great book just because the author, Maurice Meissner, if you don't know about this book, He's like very sympathetic to China, to communism. So it's not like written from a an unfriendly perspective, which is very nice. Very nice to read some like real serious engagement with China and its revolutionary struggles from an author who is like sympathetic to it, but also doing his best to like engage with the things that you know he's not he's still like critical of like the things that led to lots of death, but in the chapter that I was just reading, he's specifically comparing the like agricultural drive in the USSR in the late 20s under Stalin, like when they were going through their first 5 year plan, trying to balance collectivizing agriculture with like their drive to expand industrialization, to industrialize the country, and comparing that to China doing the same thing in the mid to late 50s. And he talks about how like Stalin basically engaged in like civil war between the city and the countryside in order to get to dekulakize um, agriculture and to like get all the Russian peasants on board with collectivization. He would like send out like military squads who like surrounded villages and like forced the peasants to participate in collective farming at gunpoint. And he killed like outright anyone who struggled openly, and like sent millions of kulaks to death or to Siberia. Whereas in China, there is not nearly the same kind of like violence involved in land reform because of the history of the Chinese Communist Party, of how they had like built themselves up differently from the USSR. Like even though in Russia you have like a history of collective farming that goes back into like the czarist era, like they're very proud of talking about how the villages were in some way like collective before communism even. So there was like already like a kernel there to allow like collective farming to sprout, and yet despite that they still had to use like pretty extreme forms of violence in order to like actually enforce collective farming. Whereas in China there is nothing like that. There is no form of collectivization that existed before communism. Like this private land ownership existed for like literally millennia. Like the manner in which land was distributed, and like the landlord system and the peasant like stratification between poor peasants, middle peasants, and rich peasants, that is something that had existed in Chinese history unchanged for like almost their entire history as far as I know. So we're talking thousands of years without any real change in like the social relations of peasant life in China, and yet they're able to collectivize in a much shorter period of time, and without nearly the same amount of violence. Why was that? It was because the Chinese Communist Party like built themselves up in the rural areas of China. That's how they won their revolution, is by activating and like getting the peasants on board. And like a large part of the Communist Party, like the majority of the Communist Party, were peasants. And yeah, they spent like decades ruling in North China, or maybe not decades, maybe like a decade or less, ruling in North China, the Yunnan period after the Great March, the Mao's Long March. and like living a very mean lifestyle, like the party leaders, just like living amongst the peasants and like organizing the peasants, and they had the whole concept of the mast line. Anyway, they were able to like do this transition of agriculture to collective farming in a much less bloody way, despite fewer precedents than in Russia, because the party had a greater connection to the peasantry. It's interesting to think about. Anyway, this is a tangent question. How did you meet these political theorists, writers? Are you in university? If I'm interrupting, I think my stream is behind. It's okay. I think the stream is. I believe that's how the stream works. I didn't really meet them. I knew Jasper Burns just because like he has a pretty big online presence as far as communists go. He doesn't have like, I mean, it's not the biggest online presence, like just in terms of like Twitter follower numbers. They're much bigger Twitter communists, for example. But he has a big presence in terms of like things that he's done, like his magazine Commune, which got canceled. I spoke about that on the last live stream. Is like kind of like a popular magazine, kind of like Jacobin, but actually communist. It ran for, I think they put out 5 issues over like a year and a half before they shut down. But he was like the editor in chief of that, and I'm really interested in like left publishing, so I was like attuned to that from the beginning. I saw their Twitter account go from like less than 100 followers to like tens of thousands of followers over the course of like a month or something. I like very closely followed their marketing and just like how they branded themselves, how they like put themselves out there, and yeah, so I followed that, and I read like a lot of the content as well. Like he's the editor or like the managing editor or something, and as well as being a founder. So he wrote like a few articles for them, but he is mostly like kind of a behind the scenes kind of guy. So I knew of him from there, and then I knew that he had participated in EndNotes because like I saw the table of contents for EndNotes 5, and like I recognized his name from the table of contents of EndNotes 3, and then like I had never like interacted with him really, but I just sent him a DM on Twitter and told him about the project. And like most professors, like most intellectuals, he is pretty willing um, to like engage with whoever, no matter the size of the platform. Like I have no platform here. I expect the interview is going to drive a lot of people to the platform just based on his like the following that he already has, rather than like vice versa. I'm not going to be driving a lot of people to him, but he's going to be driving a lot of people to me. Um, but yeah, I just sent him a message on Twitter, and like again, like most intellectuals, like especially professional academics who are perhaps have like a bit more time and like the luxury of he's not tenured or anything. He's still an adjunct, so his employment is very contingent. But I feel like people who exist in the academic sphere um, are a bit more willing to give their time to people with very small platforms, just in order to like get their views out there, to get their ideas out there, versus intellectuals who exist purely on the internet or purely in the public sphere. Because I mean, if such a thing exists, I think they're mostly liberals. I don't think there are any really like I guess there are a lot of podcasters, but most podcasters are not really communist. But public intellectuals are a bit, I think, less willing to give their time just in order to like help disseminate their views for the good of the cause, because it's their money maker. So they need to be a bit more like reticent, or they need to like protect it, be private about it. They need to be a bit more mindful of the competition of the marketplace and whatnot. So I basically, yeah, I just messaged him on Twitter, and that's how and he is like very forthcoming, very happy to do it. I don't know if I say very, but I like to say there's a black market of academia, at least for STEM articles themselves are blocked by paywall, but if you contact the authors, it's almost guaranteed you're going to get something. Yeah, for sure. I've interviewed a few other academics, both for print twice. I interviewed twice for print. Once a Maoist guy named Joshua Mufawad Paul. He's written several books. It's a pretty big influence on me. Um, and then I interviewed Aaron Manning and Brian Masumi together. They're like a husband and wife kind of duo, and they were all very willing. I just like emailed Joshua and emailed Aaron Manning, and they're all pretty forthcoming with their time, very generous. And yeah, it's true that most academics, because like they have, their even the adjuncts, like Joshua Mufawad Paul is also an adjunct. So again, his employment is very contingent, but he sent me PDFs of all of his books just so that I'd have some, because I wrote a review of his big book, Continuity and Rupture, like his main kind of like theoretical text. A pretty bad review. You can find it online if you look for it. It's in the Platypus review. But I wrote that in Bulgaria, going back to that period in my life. But most academics are pretty interested in like sharing knowledge because they have some, even if their employment is contingent, they have some like professional security kind of, and they understand that it's an investment in the long game in getting their ideas out there and participating in even like small kind of platforms. It's a way to develop their ideas in a public way, in a easily consumable way, so that hopefully people will either buy their books or become communists. So after Jasper Burns, which will be this week at some point, I have another interview lined up with another member of the EndNotes Collective. Her name is Maya Andrea Gonzalez. She wrote the essay from EndNotes 2 on the new housing question, and she also co-wrote the essay from EndNotes 3, the logic of gender, with somebody else. I forget who, but she's like the main kind of, I guess, gender theorist, or I don't even know if she's specifically a gender theorist. She mentioned that she's doing a dissertation right now on like social reproduction, and specifically social reproduction as it exists in the like Italian theory realm. So that will be coming out in a few weeks. That's scheduled for not the week coming, but the week after that, and then it will probably be released, the Monday after that. So that's going to be fun. She seems she again. I just messaged her on Twitter, and she is a bit inquisitive about the product. She has much less of a following, um, probably around as many Twitter followers as I do, and she's not very active on the platform. Yeah, that's not going to be a big driver of traffic, but there are other ways to conceive of this kind of activity than traffic based, and yeah, whatever. But yeah, that's going to be good because like that logic of gender essay was really difficult to understand. There's a lot going on. My main criticism of it, it's a very superficial criticism, but it seemed like it was too compact. It was too much content in too short an amount of space. So there's a lot. Fuck. Hello, am I still streaming? I went offline briefly. But as I was saying about the logic of gender, is very compact essay, so it's not very me. Like, fuck. My connection is going in and out. That's too bad. Um, do you read me? Anyway, there's going to be a lot to talk about there. I mean, it's going to take a lot of activity on my part. Speaking of which, there are a few links up on the screen if you want to, if you enjoy my work, my work. Uh, you can incentivize me to continue. Thank you. By giving me money, that'd be nice. Whatever. I don't really. I mean, I'm okay for now. I've been unemployed for like 9 or 10 months, but here in Canada, we have a much more robust social security network than in the United States. On EI right now, employment insurance. So I'm not hurting in the moment, but I don't know what the hell I'm going to do when eventually that runs out and I need to go back to work. I really absolutely do not want to go back to working in a restaurant. I would go back. I would work in a cafe just because it's very chill and low key. You know, maybe by the time I have to go back to work, by the time my EI runs out, I'll like I had some. I'm still technically a student in undergrad, but I had some problems with my. Oh yeah, that's the other question, Elizabeth. Am I in university? I'm not in university right now. Again, here in Canada, we have very. Maybe I should qualify that. We have a robust, I don't know if I would say that it's very robust loans and bursaries program. So university is much, much cheaper to begin with. Like the tuition fees are much cheaper than in the United States. And as well, you can get a lot of extra aid, like financial money, not any other kind of money, but you can get financial money from the government to pay for your tuition as well as living expenses. Some of it, I mean, it comes initially in the form of a loan, and then based on your circumstances, based on your economic position, whether or not you've had a job or whatever, and based on like your parents' status as well, you like they'll say a significant portion of it. Like I think the max is like 60% of your entire all of the money you get to do your degree will be a bursary, meaning that it is given to you. So you only have to pay back like 40% or something like that. That's how much I'm hoping to have to pay back of like a couple tens of thousands of dollars. So it's not nothing, but it's certainly a lot less than Americans have to pay, which I'm very grateful. Anyway, I had some funding problems because things that I don't want to get into here. Very embarrassing shit, like not being an adult. So I had my loans and bursaries cut off, so I was unable to go back to school this year. Which is, in a way, it's fortuitous because university is on Zoom now anyway, and I'm not sure if I would want to pay full price for that anyway. So it seems like a good time to take like a year off. Hopefully my funding will be back by next fall semester, and at which point I'll be back in Montreal as well, presumably. I don't know what the hell's going to happen, but yeah, so I'm taking a year off to become a YouTube superstar and also writing up my first novel. Check it out. I'm very proud of this. It's just a stack of papers. Woohoo. That's my book. Up to a page 150, which is not very much, but yeah, hopefully I'll be done the first drafts by the end of this year. And then I expect in about a year and a half, it'll be at the point where I could like potentially start sending it to agents or like editors or whatever, like at that kind of late stage in the editing process. But whether or not, it gets picked up in the traditional sense is completely unknown to me. Obviously, it's very contingent. At some point, I'll talk more about the on the channel I'll talk more about publishing and writing and whatnot. But yeah, it's very unknown about whether or not your book will get picked up by a traditional publisher, and then apparently the traditional publishers don't even really know how to. Uh, Traditional publishers don't even know how to like market books anymore. So my overall plan with this channel is to get like a bunch of subscribers, and I'm using the vlog form in a very strategic way. It's not entirely calculated. I did just pick this up as like a kind of pastime, but my secret ambition here is to forge a parasocial connection with enough people that in about 2 to 3 years, when I will know whether or not my book is being published traditionally or not, and whether or not I have to publish it independently, I'll have enough of a subscriber base who are invested in me personally that they will buy my book if I publish it independently. And if I publish it independently, I'm going to do like the endnotes route of literally just publishing it on my website, or not publishing it on my website, but selling it on my website and then like shipping it out, like printing it a bunch in advance as a capital investment on my part, and then like sending it out on my own, and just basically not using Amazon, because Amazon is evil, and I'm also banned from Amazon. So Elizabeth, do you mind sharing the topic and whatnot? Yeah, so I'm an undergrad. I enrolled in university at a pretty late age, started 26 years old. I'm currently 30, just turned 30 last week on Tuesday. So it's pretty old undergrad, but my first I enrolled as a philosophy major, and I have enough credits that like I've done my philosophy program at this point, and that took about 3 years, and then I decided, because like I was still, I didn't know what to do with my life, that I would enroll in I would do a double major and set myself up. I registered for another program. My university in Montreal has a combined art history and film studies program, which is again like another 3 to 4 years. And I have some credits already done. I've done a decent number of courses, but like if I had been intelligent about this, I would have been doing philosophy and art history or film studies courses concurrently with each other, so that I would have graduated sooner. But as it stands, I'm basically doing them back to back, and I'll have a bunch of courses that don't fit into my degree at all, like a bunch of just random courses that will be like kind of superfluous credits. Like I took a linguistics course and like a French course and an English literature course and like just some other random shit. But basically I'll be in school, if I go back next year, I'll be in school for many years yet, finishing an art history and film studies program. This is what I'm doing right now. Looking forward to more of these, but gotta go work a shitty job right now. Yeah, thanks, Tom. Good Godspeed to you, brother. I feel bad talking about how I am living off of Trudeau bucks, like my free government money, while other people have to go work their shitty jobs frontline, being exposed to the coronavirus. I mean, we're all playing to our strengths. As one of my followers said, somebody, I wonder if you're out there, Daniel, still haven't commented in a while, but there's somebody who is following me for a long time and actually supports me on Patreon, which you can do. There's a link. I in a moment of like self-doubt messaged him, saying like, what the hell am I doing with this stupid YouTube crap? And he said, he reminded me that it's important to play to your strengths, and maybe my strength is just rambling. But don't worry, I lived off money bucks before this. Mommy bucks. My story is more embarrassing. Solidarity, embarrassment. Nice. Well, thank you. I never really lived off mommy bucks. My parents were very poor. My dad died when I was 14, and my mother was actually quite poor until very recently. She made a few. My family are very like proletarian. They're very much like in the trades industry. My dad was a bricklayer, and as a child, I would always help him during summer vacations bricklaying. Um, and my mother as well. Like she didn't work while my dad was around. Um, she took care of us five kids mostly. But then when he died, she had to get a job, and she had a few like random jobs, but then eventually settled into like contracting of a different sort. She would do like kind of like interior renovations, not design. I mean, some aspect of design, but not like choosing like furniture and drapes and like that sort of thing, but more like actual renovation and like designing the layout of like rich people in Toronto's homes. So she started out with that, and she also had like a painting company. I think no, she started out painting, and then moved into interior designs, and then like a family friend was retiring, and he had like a pretty big business that he had been like in the same area that he had been developing for decades, and he had a few crews, and she acquired it for a very good deal. So yeah, she's pretty like comfortable at this point, and she has like a home in like a Toronto suburb on the East End that has like acquired that has accumulated quite a significant amount of value since when she bought it. It was like a pretty shitty neighborhood. um the East End of Toronto is like the rougher end of Toronto. uh but gentrification has like increased the property value quite significantly, and she's also, because she's like an interior renovator, she's done so much work on the house itself. It's really like beautiful. She like completely finished the basement. There's like a basement suite down there, and she's built like basically a freestanding heated with running water like work shed in the backyard. It's a quite small backyard, but she built this whole like work shed that could be somebody's house, just because it's has running water and is heated. It's insane. And she's remarried as well, so she has anyway. Yeah. Although in a way, I'm living off of mommy bucks. I'm fortunate to be living rent free right now. I had to move to the West Coast because there is a death in my girlfriend's family, and her she has to like settle the estate. I don't know why the hell I'm talking about this. I don't really have much. Shouldn't be talking about this, but yeah, we're out here while she's settling the estate. So I'm basically just accumulating employment insurance and living rent free in her mother's home, which again was purchased. And she worked for a university, had a union job, so she has a pretty good pension lined up, which will be able to like settle the mortgage at the end of the probate period. Anyway, yeah, I'm in Scarborough. Nice. Insane. Like my little brother lives there, and it's just shocking to me. The rent prices in Toronto are fucking incredible. Like paying like $800 for half of a basement in Scarborough. It's so insane. In Montreal, I mean, I don't want to brag about Montreal, but yeah, the rent is really, and even in Montreal, like over the course of the past like 7 years since I, returned there after being away for a long time, like the rent has changed so much. It's gone up so much, but it's still like a fraction of Toronto and Vancouver. Vancouver too is just incredibly expensive, like just completely fucking unlivable. And yet I'm living here free. It's how ironic. Happy that there's another Canadian, not only a Canadian, but another person from my like shitty suburb of Toronto. That's like the suburb that I grew up in. Uh, So yeah, thanks everybody for engaging. It's too damn high, lol. I gotta go have a good stream. Thank you. Thanks, bud. The rent is too damn high. It's really quite a lot. Um, Last night I was speaking to a friend who she is an artist who is normally from Montreal, but she relocated to Glasgow to do her MFA, and she's talking about like the rent there. It's pretty high as well. Like the cost of living in Scotland is not much better um, than the expensive places in Canada. It's not better in any way, but it's you got more going on there. I don't know what the hell I'm saying here, but I was thinking about Berlin specifically, which has like this whole policy. Recently, I read some headline about how they're like doing a moratorium on rent increases or something. They're like very sensitive and like proactive about gentrification and like creeping rent prices and like just basically maintaining the livability of Berlin. Berlin, like famously the cheapest kind of like highly cultural kind of center of Europe, like the most livable like cultural capital of Europe. Not saying that it's the cultural capital, but it is of Europe, but it is one of them, like along with like Paris and like I don't know, like Rome or like uh, London is no longer in Europe, but you know, Berlin has a lot of culture in it, more than just techno, but it's also like by far the most livable city in Europe. And it's really cool how they're like just very proactive. They're very conscious of that, and very like the municipal government is very like invested in maintaining that. They're basically like cutting the balls off of the landlords. The landlords didn't have a lot of power to begin with, but yeah, they're like I read very superficially about this, but they're putting a freeze on all rent hikes for like 5 to 10 years or something. So in order to like just clamp down on the rent being too damn high. Apparently in New York, the rent has actually gone down quite significantly since the pandemic age, or at least like apartments became a lot more available. Uh, because like so many people are leaving, and there's such like a large amount of like transient kind of people who just live there temporarily, even for like an extended period of time, who were leaving, and like they're just like opening up space for native New Yorkers to live a better life. We're approaching 1. What am I gonna do when I finish this live stream? I have to read this Jasper Burns essay, The Belly of the Revolution, and then finalize my little list of questions and then send it to him. That is my goal for the rest of the day. What is everybody else going to do? There are a few people here. 6 watching now. One of them is me. So before I leave, tell me what you're all up to. Or not. Some good content. Some good content, right? The builder. Who is the builder? I got a picture there. This is parasociality at its finest. We're becoming friends, and soon you will all be buying my book. It's a novel, by the way, first in a trilogy. Oh, my co-host just sent me the recording for the podcast episode that we recorded yesterday. What's your thesis topic, Elizabeth? we got some feedback from a very big time podcast listener. So it's very valuable feedcast on the podcast. First of all, our intro is way too long. Apparently, Owen, my co-host, is also a musician. He does all of the editing of the audio of the actual conversation. Equalizing it, cutting out like all of the aggressive umming and ahhing, and just like whatever. And he also like puts in his own music as the intro. But he's, I guess, putting in like full songs. I haven't been really listening to the podcast episodes anymore, but apparently he's been putting in full songs. And the person who gave us the feedback said that the intro needs to be 10 seconds maximum, which is really funny. Also, we were told that we have to increase the like parasociality of the podcast and make it more like relate to it more from a kind of personal perspective, in order to like draw in listeners and create like an actual kind of fan base for like an ongoing show, like a fan base in the strictest sense, rather than just people who are interested in the content, which is we weren't really thinking too hard about what the podcast would be or its future or anything. We just kind of accidentally ended up with 2 copies of all of these EndNotes books, and we wanted to collaborate on something, and like reading a bunch of things that were presented to us seemed like a very easy format where we wouldn't have to think up a topic each week. We would just read an essay and talk about it, so it's very easy. We weren't really thinking about like the marketing or anything, which is why it's so poorly distributed. But yeah, increasing the parasociality. The episode that we just recorded, it's like a bonus episode. Before we get into volume 4, we're just reading a few like assorted kind of essays that are kind of relevant. This is an essay from the EndNotes Collective that was published around 2011, 2012. It was collected in a reader, Communization and Its Discontents, and it's basically them like distinguishing their brand of communism, like a communist version of communization theory, from like the Tikkun / Invisible Committee brand of like anarchist kind of insurrectionist communization theory. That group as well label themselves as communizers. They use that term in the book The Coming Insurrection. So this book is this essay that we read is very transportative back to like a very particular period in time, like relating to the Invisible Committee and The Coming Insurrection, which is like for a while a very hot book. It was very for me at least, it's a book, I talk about this a lot in the podcast. The idea here is that this episode that we just recorded is really very parasocial. It's very personal because I was reading a lot of this Invisible Committee shit back in my early 20s when it was like coming out, and it's really what activated me in a big sense. So it's very easy to relate to, and anyway, yeah, it's a good episode. We didn't go like as closely through the text as we sometimes do. Like the text was quite short, and we still got into like a few of the major points of it, but really kind of like talking about the period and kind of like relating to it. Hopefully it makes for some enjoyable listening anyway. Well, I have a few options. I'm a freshman right now, but the one I'm going to work on is the intellectual / philosophical reaction to postmodernism in the youngest generations. Interesting. It's the intellectual philosophical reaction to postmodernism in the youngest generations. I'm assuming that you're talking about like Zoomers and millennials or whatnot, and how they, I mean, yeah, that's an interesting topic. I mean, I'm always on Twitter ranting about how like theory Twitter is such a fetishization of like these postmodern philosophers, and there doesn't really seem to be any substantial engagement with the content of their philosophy. Like I follow this bot, the Deleuze bot, that just retweets any tweet that contains the word Deleuze in it. So I'm exposed to like all of like Deleuze Twitter, and they're it's actually sickening how all people are talking about on the internet about Deleuze is just like his personality, and it's just like pure fetishization of philosophers, without actually any reference to the work, any kind of like serious engagement with their concepts, with their theories. Like that's so much of like Foucault fandom as well. I've spoken quite a bit about how much I hate Foucault. He's just a total piece of shit, like reactionary thinker, but he's totally like fooled a generation of people into thinking that he is actually a radical thinker, when in fact he is just a pure like reactionary neoliberal shill. I don't know if that's what you mean. If that's the sort of thing that you're going to be getting at in your dissertation or your thesis. Uh, but yeah, there's not quite enough engagement with either like serious content, like serious engagement with the content of these kinds of postmodern or like continental thinkers, or engagement with like less fashionable thinkers like Adorno. I'm a big Adorno fan over here, and yeah, I mean it's tricky to think about, because like Bataille is another example. I don't even really like, I know a decent amount of Foucault, which is why I'm comfortable hating him. Deleuze and Bataille, for example, I don't know too much about them. I've read Deleuze's book on Nietzsche, which I actually quite enjoyed, and it had like an impact on me, an influence on me. Bataille, I read his book on eroticism like a long time ago, but basically I'm agnostic about those guys. I just hate the culture around them. It seems like such a fetishization of their character without actually like engaging. I don't know. There doesn't seem to be any kind of like real engagement with the substance. And yeah, I don't know. Like Adorno and Badiou, for example, there's not nearly as much of a culture of fetishization. They're not nearly as popular or fashionable, I think, because like their personalities and like the kinds of antics that they got up to were not as like spectacular as, like, for example, Bataille like starting some kind of like bullshit secret society where, and like spreading a rumor that they did a human sacrifice in the woods of Paris. uh, how do young people respond to that idea? My central claim is that postmodernism hasn't worked for young thinkers. Chomsky plays into that as well. Lots of people love the modern philosopher idea without processing. Yeah, yeah. Chomsky, I guess maybe just because he's still around, he seems like less fetishized, like there's a bit more to grasp onto, just because like he's still with us or something. I don't know. It's like there's I don't even really think that there's the same culture around like analytic philosophers. Like Chomsky is not really a philosopher, but he's more in the analytic camp of discourse, of like reasoning. But specifically like postmodernism, continental philosophy, generally, it just so easily lends itself to like fetishization and like character, or like cults of personality. I guess because of like the way that they're trying to, I don't know, think differently in ways that could not be assimilated by the system or something, leads to I don't know, like highly idiosyncratic and like individualist kind of vocabularies, where you need to kind of like get into the head of the person in order to like understand like the way that they were speaking or something. They were speaking in like a highly individualistic kind of vocabulary that is not like a kind of social vocabulary that we're all already familiar with. But like Deleuze and Guattari, for example, are inventing their own kind of vocabulary, their own kind of like a conceptual framework, and in order to like get into it, to penetrate into it, to understand what they're thinking, you maybe perhaps need to like think more about their characters and like, I don't know, the relation to power structures and like why they're doing that sort of thing. I don't know. Anyway, it's 2:10. We're over schedule. You got 3 people. I'll just end it off here. It's fun chatting with everybody. I'm very glad that there's some more people here and that, I wasn't just talking to myself. Look forward to a nice episode of the podcast tomorrow. Look forward to some more videos tomorrow. I'll try to stick to the schedule again. Put out a good 4 videos. I'm always trying to put out 5. Always telling myself that I will, but I never get around to it. But yeah, look forward to another bright week. I hope everybody's week goes very well and everybody is very productive and happy and nobody gets sick and we all have very nice and healthy social interactions and everybody pets a dog and eats a nice meal and has a nice week. Thank you for being here. I'll see you next week. Bye. End.